Oh, how different my life would have been if I had known earlier what I now understand about anxiety. As a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety-based disorders, I find myself reflecting on how valuable it would have been to possess my current training and experience back when I struggled with debilitating anxiety during my childhood and early adult years. Many people go through life without fully understanding how much anxiety can hold them back in all aspects of their lives and make it harder to build strong, healthy relationships. I didn't realize just how much anxiety was affecting me until I turned 35. The constant worries, my irrational thoughts and fears, my overwhelming shyness, my reluctance to explore anything that was uncertain or unknown, my fractured relationships, and the overwhelming stressors were elements I hadn't directly connected to anxiety. Despite being constantly on edge, I attributed my anxiety to everything but anxiety. Once I realized what I was struggling with was in fact anxiety and obsessive-compulsive disorder, or OCD for short, I began searching for ways to regain control of my life again. At the time of my awareness, I was a new mother navigating the challenges of raising a baby while still pursuing my doctorate in clinical psychology. Despite my education and textbook familiarity with the clinical diagnosis of anxiety and OCD, it never occurred to me that the diagnosis of anxiety could be relevant to my own life. During my studies and years of working as a psychologist, I learned that experts diagnose anxiety or OCD based on observing extreme behaviors that seriously disrupt people's lives. But in my 15-plus years of experience, I've observed that anxiety doesn't always have to be extreme in order to cause distress and hold you back. Even if you're someone who succeeds and aims for achievement, you can still be affected by anxiety's negative impact. In reality, many successful individuals achieve their goals partly because they're driven by anxiety. This holds true for members of my family as well, where anxiety and OCD are very common, but even with these challenges, some have used their anxiety to their advantage to fuel their drive and become very successful. These individuals are super organized, efficient, and they work really hard. Like many ambitious people, anxiety pushes them to succeed, and society often admires and rewards their accomplishments. I've always been someone who's motivated and focused, but I worked really hard to hide my anxious feelings. Because I was afraid of being judged and criticized, I wanted to avoid drawing any unnecessary attention to myself. Over time, I realized that my desire to succeed was closely tied to my anxiety. I noticed that my anxiety pushed me to accomplish more, even though it also made me feel stressed and overwhelmed. Since I wasn't aware what I was struggling with was anxiety back then, I didn't direct my efforts towards uncovering the root cause of my anxiety. Instead, I tried out quick fixes and different methods to manage the stress related to my excessive anxious thoughts. One of the main reasons for my failure to connect my symptoms to anxiety stemmed from the fact that I didn't used to be a nervous or overwhelmingly shy person. The course of my life took a dramatic turn in the summer of 1979, over a year after the Russians had invaded Afghanistan. Prior to the Russian invasion, my life was stable. I thrived in school and had many friends. Living in Herat, we found safety and security within our tight-knit circle of family and friends. I was also a very confident child who wasn't shy about leading games and activities with the kids in my neighborhood. They would often come to me for ideas, and I'd often keep them entertained with the stories I heard on the radio. I also really enjoyed reading and sharing what I learned with others. The feeling of safety and security was stripped away from each one of us when the coup d'etat unfolded in April of 1978. The Afghan Communist Party ousted the first sitting president of Afghanistan, and within the following year, the Russian army entered the country. The initial signs emerged as propaganda leaflets rained down from airplanes into our neighborhoods. There was a lot of uncertainty after the initial invasion. As a young child, I didn't understand much of what the new changes meant, but the memories remain vivid. I can still remember stories shared by others detailing the chilling scenes of soldiers' lifeless bodies scattered on the streets, tanks rolling into cities, and the surrender of these cities to the control of the communist forces. Initially, I didn't attach much significance to these stories, but that changed when the war reached our doorstep, quite literally.